This is Up for Debate presents Shaken, Not Stirred, 6 Decades of James Bond in Film. Tonight, episode number 143, recorded April 11th, 2019. Chapter 4, Roger Moore in For Your Octopussy Only to Kill a Moonraker. Hello everybody, welcome to this episode of Up for Debate Presents, the show that dares to take a deeper look at the things you know and love. I am Sean Jennings, joined as always by the original M, Matt Mariani.
I'll take that. The original M.
And if you're M, I think I'm Moneypenny.
Okay. I didn't see it going
James.
there. I thought you were going to say Q, but okay. Moneypenny's looking a little old in these movies.
Oh boy, is she. Boy.
That was a note I was going to touch on later, but
to be fair, they're all looking old.
Yeah, no offense to her. I mean, the human body ages. It's nothing that we can avoid or prevent, but I would have thought she would have hung up her spurs by now or something. I mean, it's fine. Like, she still does a good job. It's just like, I don't know. Roger Moore, by the end of these movies too, we can't just be we can't be unfair here. Roger Moore's looking a little dated.
Oh God, yes.
By the time we circle around to A View to a Kill, he's looking like he's kind of ripe.
Well, but I will say, Mac, quick question. Who do you think looked better at the end of their run, Sean Connery or Roger Moore?
Better?
Yeah.
I think Moore probably looked better.
Yeah, I'm going to agree.
I think he looked better, but I think Connery was able to. No, I mean by Diamonds he was looking old. Yeah, I think Moore looked better.
As unlikely as it was, I bought Roger Moore could still kick ass in A View to a Kill. By the time we get to Diamonds Are Forever, Connery's looking a little retirement age.
Yes, yeah, the retirement age is good. Is a good way to put it. And he comes back for another one.
Unbelievable! Oh my God! Have you ever seen that one?
Never Say Never. Yeah, I have.
I saw the trailer for it. He looked a trillion years old.
Yes, he looked like every time I saw him on set. My first reaction was like, this must be a parody, and my second reaction was like, it's like the behind the scenes videos where you see like the director coming in, because he had a lot of creative control over that movie. Mm-hmm. That was the only reason he came back. That, and he got like truckloads of money. But it's like the behind the scenes feature where you see the director going through each scene and like mapping it out. That was a weird one.
Yeah. Well, Matt, tonight we have 4 movies to get through. It's our second part of Roger Moore. If you didn't listen last week, go back, Chapter 3. Colby Rabideau is here to talk about the first 3 Roger Moore movies. Tonight we've got the second half, his final 4 films, Moonraker, For Your Eyes Only, Octopussy, and A View to a Kill, Matt. Let's go ahead and dive into the first one, 1979's Moonraker. Roger Moore reprises his role for the 4th time and is directed by Lewis Gilbert. This is his 3rd James Bond movie. He also did You Only Live Twice, and the one previous to this, The Spy Who Loved Me. This film released, as I mentioned, in 1979 for a budget of $34 million. It made $210 million, which was actually the highest grossing James Bond movie until 1995's GoldenEye.
Yeah. This is James Bond in space.
It's James Bond : Star Wars.
Yes.
Which is funny because they even admit that Star Wars, which came out in 1977, 2 years earlier, actually did influence the film, because originally they were going to do For Your Eyes Only first and ended up moving Moonraker up because of the phenomenon of space sci-fi action movies.
You see a lot of, I wrote a lot of space influence. I wrote Star Wars, Lost in Space, a little bit of 2001: A Space Odyssey, especially when they get toward the end, when they show the space station and the like miniature models. Very heavily influenced by the new, highly trendy sci-fi movement in film. This one was a little different watching it now than what I remember.
Okay, interesting.
I guess when I was a kid, it was super cool to see Bond in space with all the lasers and gadgets and stuff. But the plot is very similar to a lot of previous Bond movies. I feel like we can probably just We can probably just get that out of the way now because it's a theme that we're going to rehash for just about every Bond movie we're going to talk about tonight. Is that the plot, especially the villain's plan, is going to be a rehash of something we've seen before from a previous Bond, and whether you want to call that laziness on the part of the writers, or if you want to call that like a nod. I think the nicer, the gentler, like critically way to put it would be like it's a nod to the past. I don't know. What do you think? What's your take on that?
I think it's a format. I think it's a template. I think you can very easily parallel it to the Marvel movies today. Name me 5 Marvel movie villains.
Thanos.
That's one. And he was in like 2 of them, 3 of them.
Loki.
Okay. 2.
You also had the Winter Soldier, who I guess joins the Avengers in the end, but wasn't he a villain at one point?
Okay, I'll give it to you. That's only 3.
What's the Red Helmet? Red Skull.
Okay, that's 4.
Yep. And
I'm gonna look like a jerk if you...
the electric guy from Iron Man 2, Jeff Bridges, who dies.
You're absolutely wrong.
What do you mean?
The character and the actor exist. The actor did not play the character you're thinking of, and you also.
Jeff Bridges didn't. Okay, well, all right. Spoiler alert: I never saw Iron Man 2. I just knew they were both in that movie. All right. So, what was your point with that exercise there?
Jeff Bridges was in the first Iron Man movie. He played Obadiah, bad guy. You're thinking of it was the Whiplash guy.
Yeah,
and it was that old creepy actor.
The one who is
my bird. He said in the whole because he had a little like bird. He said, "You bring me my bird." Who? Damn it! Who was that? This is gonna.
My
yeah, that. Oh, what a not great movie that was. I'm gonna feel really dumb when I look this up. Mickey Rourke. That's who
Mickey
it was.
Rourke. I was gonna say The Wrestler. Yes, he was in The Wrestler. Yep.
My point is that.
Mm-hmm.
It's the Marvel movies are templated. Everyone is the same. They all do the same structure. And it doesn't matter that the bad guys are forgettable or that they do the same things over and over. That's not the point. The point is the films are just enjoyable. I don't have a problem with the fact
I see.
So I'm going to tell you something about Moonraker. I really like this film, like a lot. And
wow.
Drax, is he the most original bad guy in the Bond universe? No. I still liked him. I still thought it was neat. But I agree with you, not original. That's
Sean,
okay by me.
I'm gonna give you a spoiler here that might surprise you. I actually wrote, and I can show you. I wrote in my notes, Sean probably likes this movie, and in parentheses I wrote a lot. I don't know why, but I guess while I was watching it, I was like, Sean's probably gonna say he likes this one, and we're probably gonna disagree about it. But I didn't hate it. I definitely didn't hate it. I just thought it was a little forgettable, and I think that the director made some questionable choices that we can definitely get into.
Well, go ahead.
Okay. Well, first of all, I have to say the villain looks a lot like Peter Dinklage.
Yes, a taller Peter Dinklage. Yes,
I got a big Peter Dinklage vibe. I generally liked him. He was a likable villain. I really like the speech he gives to his henchmen when they're in the base.
Yes.
He says something about like people will look to the heavens and they will find stability there or something like that. It was a very powerful speech and a very realistic one. I could definitely see someone like Elon Musk or somebody like that giving that speech in like 10 years time.
Yeah, here's a little piece of that.
He built a space station.
First there was a dream, now there is reality. Here in the untainted cradle of the heavens will be created a new super race, a race of perfect physical specimens. You have been selected as its, like gods, your offspring will return to the earth and shape it in their image.
Yeah.
From their first day on earth, they will be able to look up and know there is law and order in the heavens.
Yes, exactly.
It was great.
And I just quoted the tail end of that speech, but yeah, it's a really interesting and thought-provoking speech and overall plan by a villain. So this one was an original semi-original plan. I mean, when they get to the laser fight, it's basically just Thunderball but in space, which is okay. I don't think there's anything really wrong with that, but just pointed it out. I like the I think I like the villains. This actually might be the golden age of Bond villains. The late Roger Moore. This period. I mean, we're gonna go into the other villains in the other movies, and I think that they're top notch.
Ooh, we're probably gonna disagree, but
Good.
okay.
Okay, so let's get to the I guess the bad. We did the good. We did the bad.
Well, I think so. I will say, in terms of things that were good, I thought, in most of the Bond movies, I thought the stunts were really good. I thought the skydiving stunt off the top was very exciting. I thought it was really dynamic to watch. Of course, it ended quite ridiculously when Jaws landed on a goddamn circus tent, which was a little much. But that's kind of what I liked about this movie. Is for me, now that I've seen all the Roger Moore ones, for me, Moore does well when he lands in that sweet spot of sometimes funny, but not always funny. And that's a problem I'll have with some of tonight's later movies, is they get too funny. And I think this one has a good mix where it's over the top, but it's also not.
Well, what's interesting was I was just about to that was my number one issue, I think, with this movie, was the cuts were a little jarring. Sure. So you have the scene of the pheasant hunt with Bond, okay? Mm-hmm. Bond is hunting pheasants with the main villain, and he shoots a guy in a tree who's spying on them, or one of his henchmen is like following them or something, and the guy's like, "Yo, you missed," and he's like, "Did I?" Okay, classic Bond moment. A person just dies, but it's Bond. Then right after that, that the female interest to this point gets hunted by dogs, like the villain releases dogs.
Yes, that's crazy.
And the dogs chase her down and kill her.
Yeah,
they, like, rip her apart in the woods. Very dark moment for a Bond movie. And then right after that, immediately after that, you get the chase scene in Venice, where it's all wacky and whimsical, and Bond is like,
oh my god, the hovercraft
gondola. The guy pops out of the the guy pops out of the coffin, and then there's the gondola becomes a hovercraft. It's like it's like balancing on the coffin. I didn't get it. I just, that scene is fine. It was whimsical, slapsticky. It just went on too long, and I fundamentally didn't like how it immediately followed that like graphic murder scene with the dogs.
Sure.
It was just a little jarring.
I get that.
Not as polished as I would have liked from a Bond movie. But I mean, you have this moment where I think this is a callback to an earlier Bond movie, and they do it in a later one too. I wonder if Bond introduced this like motif where, where the guy's like looking at something and it turns weird, and he like looks at the bottle.
I caught that. I wrote that down.
Yeah.
I'm like, is that the same dude from the other movie?
I think it is. I think if you went back, it would probably be it's at least the same idea. And then he comes back and he does it again in A View, or no, it's in For Your Eyes Only. I wrote
I missed that one.
I said drunk Italian guy, way better recurring actor than racist cop.
Yes. Yeah, I hope he got credited. That's awesome.
Yeah. The best part is that he doesn't say anything, and he's only on camera for like less than 6 seconds.
But he sells the shit out of it, because he like looks at the bottle and then he looks back at it and then he like pours the bottle out. You're like, right, this guy.
I don't know. I wonder if it was in other kinds of media before this, or if Bond like kind of coined it, because it'd be kind of cool if this was something that was started by the Bond films.
That's a good question.
Yeah, that'd be kind of neat.
But, one thing I will say, and this kind of gets to the point you were just saying, and I wrote this down, this one moves at a breakneck pace, never in one place for too long. I mean, this isn't a quick moving movie, and I think in my mind that helped, because I think where the movies have gotten bogged down before are in action scenes that go on too long, dialogue scenes that go on too long. It's cut more like a modern movie. I think that worked to its advantage in that you don't stay in one place too long and that it's constantly moving and constantly evolving. I liked that in the first 15 minutes of the film, you're already at the bad guy's house. You're at Drax's house in the first 15 minutes. I mean, this movie does not waste time, which I think helps it be more full of exciting, confident. I wrote good, exciting, well-executed, semi-original stunts. I love the stunt work in this movie, not just the skydiving, but the rail cars or the gondola cars going off the mountain with Jaws, and that whole scene I thought was very tense and was exciting to watch. I thought that was great. I also felt Roger Moore was more comfortable in this movie as Bond. I felt this is really, in my mind, where he hit like the peak, like him in the role. Because I think in the first couple he's getting into it, and I think finally here he plays it really well. I was like buying, okay, this guy is Bond.
Okay, that's fair to say. This is what, his fifth or sixth appearance?
No, fourth.
His fourth. Okay, yeah, his fourth appearance. So yeah, this is where I think this is mostly where they where you find the actors hit their stride. To me, I think Connery probably hit it with Goldfinger.
Yeah. So
that was only his third, but yeah, third or fourth, sure, makes sense. I really thought I liked the twist. There was a little twist in this one where Dr. Goodhead reveals herself to be Agent Goodhead. You know, she's a Secret Service agent. She was
great.
And I thought that was awesome. Like that was, didn't see it coming. Even though I've seen the movie before, I guess. I also wrote, Jaws needs a slide whistle or Looney Tunes music. Like this, but they should bring the slide whistle back from Live and Let Die. The stupid, when the car does that stupid corkscrew, they should bring that back and just play it pretty much whenever Jaws does anything in this movie, because he's ridiculous. I think I kind of understand where they went with it. Like he was a badass villain in the Live and Let Die, or rather in The Spy Who Loved Me, and he was like kind of terrifying and imposing. But in this one, he just seems to be like, I guess in between the films, he got like a fan following, which is why they brought him back for this one. And I think they just play him for laughs.
I loved it. I thought he was much better in this one than he was in the last one. He had
more personality. I think in the last one, he was just kind of like Odd Job. He was like a tall Odd Job. Like, yeah, he just grumbles and appears, and he's there to intimidate Bond. He's just basically a glorified henchman. This one, he had a lot more personality and pizzazz, and in the end, he even joins Bond and helps him out. He joins forces with them,
which is amazing. And I literally, after the gondola scene, when he gets out of the rubble and his girlfriend is there, his new love interest is there, I literally was like, oh my God. And I wrote in all caps, Jaws falls in love. I couldn't believe it. I was like, this is good. Oh my God, this is the best movie ever made. And then like at the end of the movie where he like sacrifices himself to let Bond live and they're just there together. And I'm like, oh, I love this. It was great. Wow. I mean, it was so dumb, but that's why I liked it.
Yeah, but maybe to me, this is part of the jarring aspect of it.
This is I would say an extreme Bond film. This is a bit of an outlier, to be honest with you. I agree. It's interesting to me because I felt like Moonraker, it sort of falls there. For me, there are two kinds of Bond films, right? There's your kind of like out there Bond films, which is Moonraker and Live and Let Die, and some of these other, I'm trying to think, You Only Live Twice, maybe. But then there's like kind of your more like straight-laced spy movies, From Russia with Love, For Your Eyes Only. Some of these more like it's about being a spy. This one, it's not. This is about what crazy nonsense can we put Bond through this week?
Yeah, putting him through the ringer in just about every way. Roger Moore takes it like a champ, though. I mean, you got to admit, I watching these movies again, I think the biggest takeaway I have is that I've gained more respect for Roger Moore. His Bond is very different from Connery's, but I used to think it was too campy and too over the top, and it can be. It definitely can be in some areas, but I think given the time that it's made, it makes sense. And these movies are much more. I won't say like they're incredibly more progressive than Connery's in terms of like social issues, but I think they make strides that the Connery movies never did, and I'm glad to see the character evolve, which he does. I think he does. Bond kind of grows up. Is this the movie with the teenager? No, I think that's the next one. Movie. Okay,
yeah,
I won't spoil that, but I thought that was what they did with her was in good taste.
I agree.
For a Bond movie.
I think Moore is rarely served by these scripts. You know, he has to deliver these ridiculous lines any human being sounds silly selling. And I think he does a pretty good job at it. To me, he's like the workhorse Bond. You know, Connery could barely hack it for 6 movies, and this guy is kicking ass through 7. And I think, you know, the worst thing you could call him is consistent. You know,
sure.
He comes in and gets the job done. I will say the thing I took away is that whatever they're paying his stunt double should be doubled because he is getting a lot of work in this movie.
Yeah, and yeah, I think tit for tat. Maybe Brosnan might have him beat, but I think that Moore just seems to be the like over the top, like brute force actiony Bond. You could say Craig maybe also.
To me,
but
Moore is the approachable Bond. He's the believable Bond maybe. Because I look at someone like Sean Connery and I'm like, that guy would never really be a secret agent. But I look at Roger Moore and I'm like, I buy it. I buy that guy could be a secret agent.
Connery's kind of the film Bond. And yeah, well, actually, for me, that was Lazenby.
Okay.
For me, Lazenby seemed like of all of them, probably the most plausible Bond. Like for a real life, like realistic. I thought at least, but yeah, this movie ends pretty much the same as many of them do, where they all see Bond having sex and they make some kind of crude joke about it. Like I love how often that like final scene is used over and over, but they always seem to make it fresh. Like it's always Q or somebody from MI6 or the whole MI6 team. Like, where's Bond? Oh, there he is. He's having sex. Like always, and then they always play it in a different way, and they make like a different innuendo joke, and then that's the end. But
yes, stop calling to congratulate him.
Yeah, it is the classic like Bond swan song or classic Bond send off.
Which I think the best one has to be For Your Eyes Only, but we'll get to that.
Oh yeah,
because that one is epic. I do want to say, well, first of all, I think we breezed over it, and I just want to repeat because I love the Bond women names. Holly Goodhead. Okay. Anyway, moving on.
Sure. Goodhead. Yes.
Holly Goodhead. Just had to point that out. I want to talk about the space stuff for a minute because I thought the space stuff was really, really good. Movie spends a nice. First of all, when Bond goes to get on the spaceship, I'm like, Bond is not going to space. That would be crazy. They're like something's going to happen. He's not actually going to space, and then they send him to the goddamn space, Matt, in the space shuttle.
Yep.
I also had to Google when was the space shuttle invented because I was suspicious of the timing of this film because I'm like, that looks just like the real space shuttle, but did we have space shuttles then?
Did Bond predate the space shuttle? Did he?
Actually, what is it I read? These sort of like sketch designs were done, but one had never been launched. So in the films when they launched them, a lot of that was guesswork.
All right.
In terms of how that would work. But I thought you could tell a James Bond movie of this era by the enormous final set piece, because it usually is like a cave, a big cave, or a big pit. In this case, it's the space station. They build this big 3-story in a soundstage somewhere, and they had the space station. And this movie set the record for the most number of zero-gravity wires used simultaneously in a film when everyone goes weightless. It's a great-looking scene. Very wide, a lot of people. Everyone is suddenly weightless, running around the different space activities. Drax gets sucked into space. I just thought that whole sequence could have been done really dumbly, and I enjoyed how exciting it was. They get outside. They have laser guns for some reason. I wrote in my notes, you got Star Wars in my James Bond, because that's literally what it was. And it was insanity. And I'm like, I was there for every minute of it.
Yeah. I mean, bottom line is, yeah, they were mirroring the pop culture.
Oh, sure.
Of this one a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Which they do in Bond movies. There's that. I mean, that's what makes them special. They're kind of known for that. So, yeah, I thought it was overall, it was all right. Just a little bit jarring. I like the set work. I like the different locations throughout this patch of movies, and Moonraker goes places, even into outer space, for real. It seemed like almost like wish fulfillment, because remember in You Only Live Twice, Bond almost goes to space because he's in line to go and then they capture him in the giant artificial volcano. So it is kind of cool. It's kind of like, we almost got to see him go into space there. Oh wait, now we actually do get to see him out in outer space. So,
now, quickly, Matt, I do want to we talked about the villain. Let's talk about the villain's plan for a minute.
Yeah.
Drax's plan, he collected a nerve agent based on a plant that, when released into the atmosphere, would kill only humans, leaving animals and plants perfectly fine. His goal, he took genetically superior, quote-unquote, people, put them in the space station. We're going to wait until all the people on Earth were dead, and then he was going to go back to Earth with these people and start humanity over again. So I ask you, Matt, good plan or bad plan?
Wow. You're putting this on me.
I can go first if you'd like.
I think it's a unique plan. I'll say unique because we did say before that a lot of these villain plans seem to be rehashed and recycled. And this one is definitely something new. It's a little bit Star Trek-y. Matter of fact, it reminds me a lot of like Wrath of Khan, which had a lot to do with eugenics and master race kind of things. It is an interesting plan. I wouldn't say it's bad. I would say this is kind of original and fresh for a Bond movie. So I say good plan.
Yeah, I agree.
What do you think?
I mean, first of all, you got to give the guy credit. He actually built an entire goddamn space station and space shuttle fleet. That's a lot of work for a Bond villain. So his plan was pretty much good to go. The other thing is that at least one previous Bond villain, if not more, had the destroy the world to start it over again plan. We saw it with the underwater Atlantis base in The Spy Who Loved Me. And I think was there another villain who had that plan? The movies are really starting to blend together now. Anyhow,
there absolutely was.
Anyway. So, but this guy is smart because if you blow up the world with nuclear weapons, everything's irradiated. But this guy's like, no, I'm going to release this toxin that leaves everything fine, even the plants and animals. It just kills the people. And I'm like, okay, like, good plan. Good plan. Yeah. Like, that actually, of all the Bond plans, I'm like, that one could actually work. Like, Good job, guy. You got closer than most Bond villains do. He was even shooting them off into space. Like, he was so close.
He was. He came extremely close. What I liked about his plan was that it had nothing to do with getting a lot of money or a particular resource. Seems like a lot of the Bond villains, it's all about like one resource, like gold or diamonds, or solar technology. And his was just like, no, I'm above that. I'm beyond your capitalist Bond villain goals. My goal is to restart humanity. It's an incredibly ambitious goal for a Bond villain, but
Oh yeah.
yeah, but an interesting one. Really an interesting one.
Yeah.
He's not holding the world for ransom or anything like that. He's just like, no, screw it. I'm starting everything over.
I agree. Anything else on Moonraker, Matt?
Not really. I had the slide whistle. We hear Jaws talk at the end, which was pretty fun. What'd you think of that?
I love
When
Jaws.
he says his line, "Cheers to us."
Oh my god. Oh, my heart broke. My heart broke for the guy. He was a bad guy, but now he's a good guy.
Yeah, I knew that I think the only reason they left him alive at the end of the movie, they mentioned he escapes in the space pod. I think is because they were probably hoping to bring him back. Do you think they were hoping to bring him back for another movie, or like they were at least they were entertaining it?
I'm sure they talked about it, but then again, I don't think anyone's been in 3 movies really. Sergeant J.W. Pepper came back in 2 movies.
And 2, right.
But outside of the like main cast, none of the real supporting guys tend to come back that. Maybe like General Olaf, I think, was in 3 or 4.
General Olaf?
Olav, the Russian.
Was he supposed to be the same character?
Yes.
Oh, okay, I didn't get that. Yeah, other than Bond, M, Q, Moneypenny, like your standard hero.
Felix repeats as a character, but always played by a different actor.
Mm-hmm. Like side characters.
Yeah, they
never seem to make more than 2, right?
No, so I don't know. But I think the send off was good. I don't think you want to bring him back after that. I think you really closed the book on Jaws in this one.
I mean, Blofeld was probably in a couple.
Blofeld, that's true.
Right?
He was in 2 or 3.
Sure.
Including our next film, For Your Eyes Only, the
For Your Eyes
1981
Only.
film. That's my segue. 1981, Roger Moore returns for his 5th. This time, John Glenn is at the helm. Director John Glenn taking his first crack at the Bond franchise. He would go on to direct 5 films in the series. This movie came out with a $28 million budget, made $195 million at the box office. We are introduced to an exciting world, Matt, and more of a return to a classic spy film.
Yeah, that's exactly where my notes start up, is that I wrote, did that thing where the last Bond movie was crazy. So this one is more sober, more realistic, and more character-driven.
Absolutely.
It was more about, or story-driven, rather, and character-driven, too, I say. Yeah, this is Bond returning to form. They've done it before, most notably, I think, after Live and Let Die, and the one immediately after Live and Let Die. Thank you, Man with the Golden Gun. And then right after that with
The Spy Who Loved Me.
The Spy Who Loved Me.
Very
Spy
reminiscent.
Was that kind of return to form.
Very reminiscent of that.
Yes. In later Moore films, For Your Eyes Only is that return to form.
Yep.
Sean, I really like this movie. I think this for me, this is my favorite one of the night. This is my pick for favorite of the night.
Matt, can I surprise you?
Did you have that written down in your notes?
Yeah, it says right here. It's going to be Matt's favorite of the night. No, I also love this movie, and it's tied with Moonraker for my favorite of the night. I actually I was shocked that I like both of these back to back. I really, really enjoyed this movie, but that's what I love about doing the Bond franchise, is I like these 2 movies for totally different reasons. That's insane. It's the same actor, it's the same people making them, but they're like 2 totally different films, and that's great.
Oh, I totally agree. I think if you were to show somebody who's never seen Bond before these 2 movies back to back, I think that these would be the 2 that would convince them to want to watch more.
Yes.
More movies, not Roger Moore, but more Bond movies. Just because they are totally different, but at the same time, they do what they do so well.
Yeah, and this one was the one that really finally sold me on Roger Moore, because after coming out of Live and Let Die and The Man with the Golden Gun, I'm like, I don't know what I think of this Roger Moore guy. And then between Moonraker and For Your Eyes Only, I'm like, all right, I'm on board. I'm on the Moore train.
This one was a very introspective Bond movie. I
Yes,
wrote
well,
introspective and self-referential, especially in the intro scene, which,
yes.
I mean, we talked about it before. Weird intro scene.
Oh my
This
God,
one's very, very
bizarre.
bizarre. Comes totally out of left field. Do you want to explain a little bit, summarize it for the folks at home?
Yeah, so
This bizarre intro scene.
talking about inside references, he's leaving flowers at his wife's grave. And you're saying, what are you talking about, Sean? James Bond doesn't have a wife. Check the tape. He does. In a previous movie, not played by Roger Moore, which is kind of crazy. The second time he's referenced his dead wife, Roger Moore. He's called away for business. He gets on a helicopter, and that helicopter is suddenly taken control of by, legally, not Ernst Blofeld. And you're saying, what do you mean legally not Ernst Blofeld? You notice they never call him that in the film. The producers don't own the rights to Blofeld because the character was created in Thunderball was the Bond movie that had complicated rights between these producers and another set of producers. It's believed that part of that is why they killed off the character so weirdly in this one, is to kind of stick a point, that a deliberate statement that they didn't need the character, so they just killed him off. So you never see his face. You see a bald man in a wheelchair with a cat, and you're supposed to just imply that it's Blofeld, and he whizzes James Bond around in a very exciting helicopter action sequence. Bond climbs aside the helicopter flies through a building. Eventually, Bond gets control, takes the helicopter, swoops down, picks up the wheelchair with the skid of the helicopter, and then dumps his ass in a smokestack, killing him off. Boom, start of movie. Whoa.
Wow.
Now, what just happened? And it's never referenced again.
Exactly. It's not even, not even brought up later in the film. I don't want to put you on the spot here, Sean, but did they, and we can, I'm sure someone could look it up. I should have researched this beforehand, but what do they credit this figure as in the, like, do they give him a credit? Because obviously they can't call him Blofeld. Do they call him like Man with Cat or something?
The character is unnamed, not even listed. They don't list an actor or a name.
So do you think it was just like a stunt man, like or somebody, an extra they had on hand or something?
Well, I'm curious.
It wasn't even in SAG.
I'm sure the guy in the wheelchair was. I don't know who did his voice. Wikipedia comments that it might have been Telly Savalas. Sounds like Telly Savalas who's bald, but nobody really seems to know.
Yeah. This is, I mean, at first glance, you might think this is petty. It's like pettiness, but I really liked it. I thought it was a fun way to publicly announce a departure from the old regime. Like, like that's the Bond of the past. We're dumping this out. And I think you do see a lot of changes in this movie. This is what I was talking about with kind of a more progressive Bond. The purpose of it was legal purposes, because they didn't have the rights to the character anymore, and they were showing, like, you know what, it doesn't matter. We don't care. We don't care that we don't have the rights. Like, we're done. We're moving on. I liked it.
I get what you're saying. The problem is Blofeld hadn't been in a movie for like 10 years at this point.
Well, it was the symbol. I think it was the symbol of Blofeld.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the character didn't matter. I mean, really, the character didn't matter because they just trusted you to fill in the blanks using your own.
Well, but that's the thing.
Head.
I think this makes more sense for Bond fans. I think if you're just coming into the movie just to watch the movie and you're like, what's up with the dude in the wheelchair? Like, that was weird.
Oh yeah, this was it was totally service to the fans.
I thought the helicopter stuff was exciting to watch. Did they really need to do it? I don't think so. Did it add a lot to this particular movie? No, it's more of a weird footnote in the movie. But okay, that's more power to them. I guess if you're gonna make a stand, that's a good way to do it.
I really liked it. Yeah, I really liked that the message that it sent. Was it completely necessary? No, but I mean, it was kind of, it was a. I thought it was a nice little wink and nod to the fans of the series, and being like, they were kind of, the message was sent that we're gonna be okay, and we're gonna keep doing Bond as we interpret Bond, and It was also just, I mean, it was more like, yeah, we know you read these things. We might have read this in the papers, about everything that's going on. But here's our take on it. Doesn't matter to us. Whatever. We'll dump them down smokestack and we'll move on.
See, I thought that, honestly, as much as I enjoyed that, I thought maybe not more exciting, but the as exciting opening was the sinking of the ship. I'm mixing up.
Sinking of the ship?
No, I'm right. Yes, where it's the secret, it's the fishing vessel disguised, it's spy ship with the ATAC in it, and they sink it. Floods with water.
Oh yeah, okay.
I mean, I thought that was exciting too.
Yeah, no, that was exciting. Sure. I just think that this was a different.
It's a different thing.
This was symbolic. This was like a symbolic intro.
Sure.
And I thought it was cool because most of the time the intro is what? The intro is Bond doing something cool, actiony, Bondish, or the villain doing something dastardly evil. This was a departure from both of those things. This is something totally different. This is Bond, like almost breaking the fourth wall, in a self-referential way. And the part, both parts, you could divide it into the two things: the leaving flowers at his wife's grave, and the dumping Blofeld down the smokestack. I think were symbolic of two different things. I think they were, but both of them, they were different. They were different in that the first part was Bond recognizing the past and recognizing his past and learning to kind of cope with it, laying the flowers and coping with it. And you see the quote, "We have all the time in the world," which he says on Her Majesty's Secret Service, right after his wife is killed. So it's like a touchstone to the past. And then you have the dumping Blofeld down the smokestack, which is supposed to be cool and Bondish, but it's also saying that we're parting ways with this old regime, and we'll be all right. This was also kind of part of, I wrote down, a tear it all down mentality.
Yeah.
That's what I felt like throughout this whole movie. Was like new director, same Bond that we've had in the past, but kind of different in a lot of ways. He's a lot more confident. I mean, you said Sean, that in Moonraker was where he found his stride and found his confidence. I think in this movie, it's where he shows it.
Yeah.
Like that he has found it, and he
comes out swinging.
Yes, comes out swinging. Exactly. He's firing on all cylinders in this one, and that's what I really, really like to see. If there's ever a Bond movie that I think I would rewatch again and again, it'd probably be this one. I mean, realistically, I actually did that with GoldenEye. When we get to GoldenEye, I've seen that movie more than any of the other Bond films.
Oh boy, I'll have to study it closely.
But I don't know why. I guess that was one of the first ones that I saw. I had like some kind of attachment to it, but
yeah, 95.
This one was great. Yeah, this one was great. If I were to like read essays about a Bond film, I think this would be the one that I'd like to read more about. For Your Eyes Only. Excellent.
Yes.
Even the title itself kind of alludes to like the Bond fans. Like these films are for your eyes only. Yeah.
Very good name.
It's pretty neat. So
I think there was a lot to like in this movie. I really liked the quote unquote main Bond girl of the film, Melina Havelock. It was nice to see, and we saw a little bit of this with Holly Goodhead in the previous film, but I like when the Bond girls have something to do, when they actually contribute to the movie and they're not just there to be dumb. And
yes.
She was really good. She comes out, you meet her at first, Bond talks sexy to her, okay? And then boom, she's suddenly in the woods with a goddamn crossbow. And you're like, wow, all right, this lady kicks ass. And like Bond keeps saying, stay here. And she's like, screw you. No, I'm not staying here. I thought that was, I love when these movies do that because I think it brings more out of Roger Moore in his performance to have somebody more his equal. It was kind of like in a movie we were just comparing to this one, The Spy Who Loved Me, where, again, Triple X is sort of his counterpart. He has more to work with in terms of the acting and the scenes. And so I thought she was really good in this.
Yeah. I wrote that down. Yeah, best Bond girl since The Spy Who Loved Me. For sure. This was awesome. This Bond girl was independent, strong, motivated for like she was out for revenge. It was actually a lot. It was very, very similar to The Spy Who Loved Me, many different ways.
Except she wasn't a spy, which
Right,
I liked, because it's like she's just a regular lady with a crossbow. Like, that's crazy.
Mm-hmm. I feel like she was what the girl from Goldfinger? No, Jill Masterson. Yeah, Goldfinger. I think she was what they were probably kind of going for in Jill Masterson, but like
They
Sean
killed Jill
Connery's,
Masterson.
yeah, and Sean Connery's machismo and kind of like over masculine style was like what kind of, I guess, overshadowed her in that movie or something.
You know what this movie really reminded me a lot of, which surprised me? It felt very Indiana Jones to me.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, both in Moore's performance, in her performance, in the sort of the history around the movie, the locations of the movie, the villains of the movie. I thought if instead of the ATAC being the sort of MacGuffin of the film, if it had been some kind of artifact, I'm like, this is an Indiana Jones movie.
Right. They have to climb up the mountain. They go to the temple, and it's all in like the Greek islands.
Yeah, very few like crazy gadgets in this one. There are some, but not as many.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not about the gadgets in this one, which was really cool because they, Q sets Bond up with like these gadgets and things, and most famously that like high tech vehicle, that like car, that vehicle. But then we see it get destroyed right away.
Almost immediately. It's
just
great.
gets destroyed, which is awesome. I love that. I love that they do that because the movie is about Bond immediately like cutting ties with the technology and like just going off of his own human instincts, which is awesome.
But I will say this movie did have one of my favorite gadgets of all time, the identograph.
Oh, sure.
The high-tech way of making a face where it's like all these big cartridges in a big computer room, and it's like, oh, what's his nose look like? And then it was like able to make the photograph out of it. It was crazy.
Yeah, it was a printer. It was a pretty
dot matrix
printer.
like
Yep.
Yeah. God, it was a long time ago. But that's what I think. So if this movie is Indiana Jones, it's Indiana Jones with way better stunts. This movie had a ton. I wrote in my notes an insane amount of stunt double work on this one. And I wrote, this one has much more action than a standard Bond film. I really thought it did. A lot more gunfights. We had the big Citroen car chase, the little yellow car chase. We had the big ski chase that went on forever. And like he's in a goddamn bobsled track and he's going off he went through like 8 Olympic events on skis, which was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought was shot really well. There was all the underwater stuff where they're having this kind of slow underwater fight. I wrote slowest underwater fight ever. I just thought it was great. I thought the action was really good in this one, and there was a lot of it, a lot to really enjoy.
Yeah. I love the set pieces. Big time fan of the set pieces. This was it was an action packed. It held my interest in a way that many Bond movies don't. Like a lot of Bond movies are great, but there are always some rough patches where you gotta wait. And I think the most famous one for you was it Golden Gun? Was that the one that you thought was like you had to watch it in 2 sittings?
Oh, Thunderball.
Are you sure it wasn't Man with the Golden Gun?
No, that one was also hard, but specifically the incredibly slow, silent underwater fighting of Thunderball.
But I thought you said for Golden Gun, you said you had to watch it in 2 parts.
Like there's several of these I've had to watch in 2 parts.
Couldn't sit and just watch the whole thing.
I will say Moonraker and For Your Eyes Only are some of the few I've watched all the way through in a single sitting.
Right. Well, that's what I mean is that, these keep your attention.
Well, I literally, in both of these films, out loud, if you were like my neighbor, you must have thought I was getting stabbed because I do that like really loud, out loud laugh thing I do where it's like, what was that? And I just go nuts because I'm like, this is insanity. When he's going down the bobsled, or there's like one point where he goes off he skis across a table people are dining on at a ski lodge, and and there's like a dude with a mug of hot cocoa who's like confused, and I'm like, what is going on?
That's wonderful. Great. Wonderful stuff. Yeah. Right out of the gate, I thought John Glenn did a great directing job on this one. We're introduced to a another Bond girl. I don't know if she counts as a Bond girl.
Well,
She's
they
a
have
character.
sex. Do they have sex?
No, they don't.
Then she
They-
can't be a
not-
Bond girl.
So okay, good, because so what I'm talking about is the young high school age girl who's the ice skater
Yes.
who I guess she sneaks into Bond's room, okay, and like gets into Bond's bed, but Bond is like totally not into the idea. Right from the very beginning, he's just like, put your clothes back on. Like I think he says, get dressed and I'll buy you an ice cream, I think is the line.
Yes, he does.
And when I saw that, I was genuinely concerned in that scene. I was like, don't go there, Bond. Come on. Don't do that. But he doesn't. And totally subverts my expectations of Bond, as like a dirty creep. I thought that he was going to do it. He was going to go there, but he didn't. This counts as progress, is what I wrote. Very glad to see Bond turn down the young high school girl. This counts as progress.
See, I had a slightly different spin where I wrote, it is fun watching Bond get some of that sweet sexual assault back at him.
Oh, that's a different take on that.
Because the whole time I'm like, good, he's getting a taste of his own medicine. Now he should stop assaulting all those other women. Not everyone wants to sleep with you, James Bond.
Yeah, I thought this was a good thing. This was a good thing for the franchise. Like, it's baby steps, but it puts a more it puts limits on Bond. It puts limits on him. It puts like guardrails up, which is good. I think he needs those guardrails sometimes, most of the time.
Well, and first of all, her name, great name, BB Doll.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
Yep.
I didn't catch that. I knew they kept calling her BB, but I didn't catch that her last name was Doll.
BB Doll, which I'm like, yes, I love these names.
Great name.
It's kind of incredible that when I first met that character, I'm like, she's gonna get on my nerves. She's gonna be really annoying. And then by the end, I'm like, she's meant to play an annoying character, which I get, but I don't find her annoying. Like, I find something compelling about that character. Yes, it was weird because I know I'm supposed to find her annoying. And now that I've accepted that and I've moved on from that, I'm like, oh, I get she needs to be annoying in this movie for the movie to work. In the movie where it's the same character, but she's sexy or she's exciting or anything else but what she is, it's not as interesting of a movie. So I'm glad she's annoying in it, and I came to appreciate what it added to the film, because not most annoying Bond girls, when I think back to Goodnight as an example of one who was really bad, she was just annoying because she was ditzy, but BB just plays it off as a young teenager in the 70s. And I'm like, okay, I get that. That's an interesting element to add to this movie we haven't seen in Bond films before. So I got on board at that point.
Well, we had different interpretations. I thought she was freaking annoying from beginning to end.
Well, then it worked. That's the idea.
Oh, well. I didn't really think she worked in the movie. She could have really that one scene where she tries to seduce Bond and Bond isn't having any of it, that worked and that was good. But I think it could have been a one-note thing. Like, maybe Bond goes to this resort and he sees a young girl skating and she sees him, and then she tries to seduce him. Like, that could have worked as a good opening, I think. And then he says, like, put your clothes on and I'll buy you ice cream, and then cut to title. But there would have to be some kind of fight scene or action. Maybe when the hockey guys show up.
That was weird too.
Remember the weird hockey fight?
Why did all this stuff keep... That fight took 30 seconds.
I want to say that all of that could have easily taken place as the intro. Like, he could have done the skiing thing and fought the hockey players to rescue the ice skating girl, finds out she's really young, doesn't sleep with her because that would be dirty, and then they cut to the title sequence. I think that would have worked totally fine as an intro.
But they did.
Not saying I didn't like the intro to this one. I thought this was a great intro, but
no, but they did a skiing opening in 2 movies earlier in The Spy Who Loved Me, so I don't know if they'd want to do. And then they do another one in A View to a Kill.
They do, but I mean,
but I hear what you're saying.
They recycle
I hear
a lot.
What you're saying.
Yeah, they have a pretty deep recycle bin for a lot of their ideas.
But one thing they didn't recycle, and you'll have to correct me, I think this is the first time they do it with the villain fake out, where they set you up in this movie to think that Columbo, Milos Columbo, who's eating those pistachios all the time, which is great, you're led to believe he's the bad guy, which Bond is told by Christados, who Bond thinks is his friend, and then comes to find out, Columbo goes, no, you've got the wrong guy. Christados is the bad guy. And I bought it, and I was totally on board with it because they hadn't done it before in a zillion movies. And I'm like, all right, this is actually really interesting. And Christados, I thought, was a pretty good Bond bad guy. Not as over the top as some of the other ones, because this plan was a little more reasonable. It was just kind of a normal smuggler villain bad guy rather than a destroy the whole world bad guy. But I thought he sold it. I thought his acting, I thought actually Columbo was really, I thought they were both great.
Sean, I loved that part of the movie. I thought that was awesome. And it had never been done in a Bond movie. It totally subverted the audience's expectations in a really unique way.
Yep.
That's what this movie was about. Like, kind of the recurring theme was subverting audience expectations. You see it when the car gets destroyed. So Bond doesn't get his usual gadgets that he has to rely on. He has to rely more on his wits. You see it with the girl being extremely competent and productive and a good asset to and complement to Bond. You see it with him turning down the young female. Also kind of subverts audience expectations in a good way. Most prominently you see it with this villain twist where it turns out that Christados is behind the whole thing. Mm-hmm. I thought it was awesome. I thought that was like, it was very mature. I wrote that this is Moore's most mature grown-up Bond film yet. And you see it at the end, the very end, first of all, when Q shows up disguised as the priest. I thought that was hilarious. Again, a little subversion, because Q is usually in the beginning of the movie, but he doesn't show up again, but he shows up later on. And then when Bond destroys the code machine, when he just throws the thing right off the cliff and is like, now neither of us have it.
Which really aggressively explodes when it hits a rock.
Yeah,
I mean, it shatters into a million pieces.
They had fun with that one. I think they had to make it clear that nobody was getting their hands on it after that.
Yep.
But really, really fun ways.
It's a great movie
to kind of turn things on its head. Awesome. I liked it. Mm-hmm.
I agree. This one was a really, really good one.
I didn't like, though, at the end when the girl is she wants to kill the bad guy.
Yes.
She wants to finally have her revenge, and Bond says something
you're digging two graves.
Digging two graves, yeah. Right. He's being very stoic and philosophical, but Bond does that shit all the time. He's all about revenge. He takes revenge in the very first scene when he dumps Blofeld into the smokestack.
You have to remember, he is licensed to kill. She does not have a license to kill. You have to fill out some forms and be tested for that.
Okay.
So he's allowed to do it. She cannot.
He doesn't want her to get a fine. He doesn't.
It's a hefty fine and community service.
Right. If you fish without a license, you get a fine.
Years of probation, that goes on your record. That impacts your credit score.
Sure. That's true.
Now if she were to apply for a license to kill and go through the normal 6-month waiting process and the background check and all the the test that goes along with it, then she can kill the guy.
Yeah. But until then, revenge is only cool when Bond does it.
Exactly.
Basically. He even does it, like I said, earlier in that movie, when he dumps Blofeld down the smokestack, he also kicks the guy off the cliff when he's in the car.
Yes, which controversial scene. Moore didn't want to do that scene, kicking him off the car, because he thought that was a little too mean even for Bond.
Right.
But he did it anyway. One last thing I want to mention on For Your Eyes Only, and we teased this in Moonraker, but the ending scene of the movie, after Bond has succeeded, and he starts having sex with the Bond girl of the film, they try to call Bond and patch him in with the Prime Minister. I believe, is that Margaret Thatcher?
It's supposed to be a Thatcher.
Yeah.
Thatcher clone, basically. It is Margaret Thatcher. Yeah.
And then he puts the phone next to the parrot in the movie, who repeats a couple lines and hello, and Margaret Thatcher is so stupid she really thinks she's talking to James Bond, and then of course it goes, thank you very much, and she goes, no, thank you.
Yeah.
And then the bird goes, give me a kiss, oh my.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh no.
Yeah.
It was great.
Was this the first movie made with Thatcher as prime minister?
That I don't know. That's
probably was. I mean, this was the 80s, right? This was 81. Yeah. Yeah, so I probably was. I thought it was cute. It was a cute little ending.
In a movie that had been pretty serious throughout, I thought that was a fun way to end it.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, it was fun. It was fun. Yeah, cuz that movie did get dark in some places, for sure. From Bond kicking the guy off the cliff to the flowers on the grave. But it had a great balance to it. It really did have a good balance and a good tempo for a Bond. It was very mature for a Bond movie. They rely on the parrot. The parrot is a huge plot device for finding the location and the ultimate final scene. Awesome. Really, really well done because it's like low tech. It's like, a Bond using his wits. The guy uses the pistachios to identify the henchman.
It's good spy work.
Yes, good spy. It's like a return to form. So overall, yeah, I give this one a high score. I give it high marks for a Bond film.
Strongly agree.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, Matt, we have to move on to the next film. I have a sneaking suspicion won't get quite as high a marks. It is Octopussy. The next film here from 1983. John Glenn returns to direct. Roger Moore returns to star. This film cost $27.5 million, made $187 at the box office. He's back, and he's going to India this time around. Yeah, Matt, if I have to sum up my thoughts of this movie I literally wrote one word, corny.
This was a very corny. This was...
I also, by the way,
kind of Roger Moore's stereotypical campy movie. Yeah.
I also wrote, and then my two other comments right after it was, I cannot handle the sheer quantity of quips being thrown at me. And then, is Moore getting less charming as these films go on?
Yeah, I think we saw him peak. I think we saw him peak with For Your Eyes Only. I think it's only kind of down from here. It's like a slow... He's moving down the ladder on this one.
Again,
slow walk down the ladder, slow climb down.
I gotta take issue with the script though, because I don't know if any actor. I swear to God, if I went through the script and counted, easily 70% of his dialogue is one-liners. I mean, it is out of control in this film, and I don't think anybody, Connery, I don't think anybody could have delivered this script in a good way. It's bad in this one.
Do you think that the writers thought this is what the people wanted, so let's give it to them? I think that's why they're in there.
I honestly, and when we get to A View to a Kill, there's some sort of similar opinions between them, but I think they're just out of ideas, and I think they're just moving into the half-ass phase of Roger Moore's tenure as Bond, honestly, which is a shame. Another thing I wrote, this one is much slower compared to the other film. For Your Eyes Only and even Moonraker are fast films. They move. You got quick stunts. You've got quick scenes. The dialogue doesn't go on too long. This movie, scenes drag on forever. The taxi chase through India scene was one of the most mild car chases I've ever seen in film. Almost nothing interesting happens, except at the end when he goes through about 8 different Indian stereotypes where it's the guy laying on the bed of nails, he pulls a sword out of a sword swallower. I'm like, come on. Like, you can't be both boring and jokey. Like, it doesn't work.
Well, I was just going to say, I think pretty much the entire chase was all just built for laughs. Like, It was built for corny laughs and
every line is
stupidity.
A joke.
Yeah, basically. It was very much played for laughs, that chase part through the Indian streets there. Yeah, I don't have a whole lot of good things to say about this one. I wrote that there's the intro scene which has nothing to do with the rest of the movie, where I think they're supposed to be in Cuba. It's like I thought it was a direct reference to like the Bay of Pigs and Cuban Missile Crisis with there's like the Fidel Castro lookalike,
Yeah.
and Bond dresses up as like one of their generals, but he gets caught immediately, and then he plants the bomb. I didn't really. It had nothing to do with the rest of the movie.
No.
I get, but and it was also really slow and not a great intro at all. And not really timely either, because this is 1983. This is 2 decades after that it happened. It's not even like a contemporary thing. I guess they had to show Bond doing like a spy thing.
Yeah, he's got the fake horse trailer with the tiny plane in it. I thought
Right.
elements of the plane, like when he flies the plane through the hangar, I thought that was a pretty good stunt. He goes sideways out the door. But again, it's one of those, it's like you got to learn when to cut, because it not only does he fly the plane out, he then does aerial stuff to avoid a missile. Then he flies through the thing. Then he lands it, stops at a gas station and says, "Fill it up."
Oh, so yeah,
Come
that's right.
on. But then he does like another whole bit with like the plane bit goes on forever. And I'm like, you could have done one stunt, not four all next to each other.
Yeah, that was silly. It was just a silly.
But I will say, I did like some of the stunts in the movie. I did think elements of the plane were really good. I thought not to get too far ahead, but I thought the train chase where he's on top of the train, or he's kind of grabbing onto the side of the train. I thought that was all really exciting. I thought it was shot really well. I thought, the stuff where it's actually the stunt double on a real train. I'm like, wow, that looks really dangerous. Like, wow, that's really exciting. I thought it had moments that were good. I don't think there were enough of them. Like I said, the tuk-tuk chase was kind of meh for me. So it was a little give or take in the stunt department.
Yeah. This movie was relying too heavily on its set pieces. I think it was relying too heavily on its environment. In India, exotic location.
The circus.
They had never been there before. Circus. It was relying too much on that, and the story wasn't great. The Roger Moore wasn't great in this one.
No,
he didn't really get a lot from him. It didn't have a whole lot to save it. I thought that his Indian friend was pretty
he
cool.
was great. Oh, he was dynamite.
Kill him off.
VJ.
They kill him off pretty early. He's actually, it turned out, I looked him up. He was a popular tennis star.
That's
in
why
India
he uses
at
the
time,
tennis racket.
Why the tennis racket is used in the car chase and in other scenes. So
he was really funny.
That was pretty cool.
That's the kind of character you put in a more serious Bond movie to lighten the tone. You don't need him in an already jokey movie. I think that's overkill. I mean, for me, this movie had several. We talked about the slide whistle moment. This movie had several slide whistle moments, including when the Snake Charmer plays the James Bond theme.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, come on. There's also where Bond is swinging on a vine through the jungle and does a goddamn Tarzan yell.
Oh, that
and I'm like,
killed me.
Stop. Oh my God. It was like stressful for me watching this movie because I'm like, I can't take it.
It was like an annoying kid. That's how I felt. Like whenever something like that happened, it's like an annoying kid that's like, look at this, look at this, look at this.
Look
Remember this? Remember this? Remember this? Yeah.
It was frustrating.
The villain wasn't that like the henchman villain, the really tall Indian guy.
Oh, Magda.
Bagda, yeah. Was basically just a rehash of like Jaws and Odd Job, just like your silent henchman person. Made me actually appreciate Jaws even more because it was like, at least Jaws, they gave him some personality and character.
But see, I thought the good gimmick guy was the buzzsaw yo-yo guy.
Yes.
Which was like, I was trying to think like, which is less useful, a buzzsaw yo-yo or Odd Job's hat? And I'm like, I guess the yo-yo saw comes back to you.
The hat the hat doesn't, but the hat's cool at least. The hat's badass. He doesn't use it nearly enough in the movie, but it is cool.
It was such a weird choice as a weapon.
It was just I think it was just one of those like neat little Cold War spy things, like the knife tip shoes in From Russia with Love.
Yeah.
They make pointed reference to Moneypenny's age in this one. When Bond comes in and sees like the young Moneypenny, and he goes he pretty much erases the progress he made in the last movie. He dives right in for the new intern, and then old Moneypenny shows up and is like, "I'm right here, James. I'm still here. You still have to look at me."
Which, by the way, Moneypenny's assistant, another great Bond name, Penelope Smallbone.
Yeah, yes, there we go.
Like, who comes up with this?
They probably have a generator, like a Bond name generator, so out there in the world somewhere. They did have for the very first time a female main villain in the Bond movie.
But
they gave her very much like a Blofeld-esque intro where you don't see her face, but you do see the nail polish. And is she petting a cat? I don't remember. You just see her hand. I think she's petting a cat or something. And she's like at a desk. It's supposed to be like it's like, oh look, Mrs. Blofeld or something like that. We can do Blofeld too.
I struggle to call her the primary villain though, because she's not really the villain. Kamal is the villain. He's the one with the nuclear bomb. I mean, she's a jewelry smuggler, but I think by the end of the movie, you're supposed to like her. It's kind of like Tiffany Case, one of your favorite characters, who is also a jewel smuggler, but you're like, oh, she's a bad person, but we're still supposed to like her. So
I don't know.
I agree. She should be the primary villain, but by the end of this,
I treated her more like the primary villain. Like I thought that he was like the mastermind behind it, but she was the face of it. She was like the face of the villain team.
But then they make a whole point where she's like, oh, she used to be a jewel smuggler, but now she's in legitimate businesses like the circus and other legitimate things.
Yeah, but she's still helping the
That's
smuggler.
True.
She's still
I hear what you're
betting
saying.
him. But I get your point.
I thought she was good in the movie.
Uh-huh.
I thought her acting was good. Was it a compelling movie overall? No, but I thought at least she was good in it.
I thought that her team it was interesting that they kind of used their sexuality to
the all lady fighting force.
Yeah, to achieve their goals, which was an interesting thing. I guess seemed to be kind of empowering. Because you're used to Bond like, a wolf in a hen house, but these are like, the hens are fighting back and like pecking the horny men that are after them.
Although I will say,
which is cool.
It drove me nuts when towards the end of the movie, when Octopussy and all of her ladies from the circus are infiltrating Khan's lair after he set them up to die in the nuclear explosion, and they're like using circus stuff to get in. And I'm like, oh, this is cool. She's going to kick his ass and take him down and use the circus ladies to do it. I'm on board. And then goddamn James Bond has to fly in a friggin' Union Jack hot air balloon. I literally thought like, hey, finally, the lady is going to have a chance to succeed at the day. We don't need James Bond to succeed. And he fucking jets in his goddamn hot air balloon.
Yeah.
And I was so mad. And like he uses the hot air balloon to knock over a bad guy. I'm like, what is happening in this movie?
What would have been funny is if Bond came in and ruined their plan, like kind of like Tiffany Case.
Yeah.
When she messes up Bond's plan in Diamonds, and when his plan gets messed up in GoldenEye, or Gold Man with Golden Gun.
Yes.
Like I thought that would have been you're right. You're right. That would have been a nice subversion that would have made this movie a little more unique. But as it was, this movie had the unfair advantage of the unfortunate advantage of being the one to compete with Sean Connery as Bond. This is the first time ever that two Bond movies were released simultaneously into theaters. Like the same year to compete against one another. And Connery was in the unofficial Never Say Never Again in the same year. So I wonder how much that had an impact on this movie. It didn't seem like it really did. Like Moore was just doing his thing, and the writers were doing their thing, and it didn't seem like this was the one that they didn't make any direct references or shots at Connery's Bond or anything like that, which I kind of expected. I thought maybe they would, but maybe they didn't have the time since they were just kind of just put out at the same production cycle. So, let's see. Do you have anything more to say about Octopussy?
Yeah, I mean, I will say I have a note here that I did think the dynamic between Bond and Octopussy was good for a healthy chunk of the movie. I was like, oh, these two are an interesting pair because she's kind of a bad guy, but kind of not. She doesn't want to kill Bond, but maybe she does. And there's a little bit of the back and forth. Okay, this is really interesting. And then Bond, she's like, he starts to get all sexy with her, and she's like, no. And he's like, I'm going to get sexy on you. And she goes, no. And then he, literally forces himself into a kiss. And I wrote in my notes, I was just starting to like the Octopussy dynamic when Bond went #MeToo all over her. It was kind of gross. Did not like that. I said that was I was really on board until then.
This is not the first time we see Bond do it. And admittedly, it happens more with the Connery Bonds.
Yeah, Moore's behaved relatively well so far.
Yeah, but still not okay.
No.
Not an okay thing for Bond to do. So.
No. And the only other note I have is, remember when people loved the circus? These people were those American, I don't know what, generals, captains, whatever they were so excited by the circus. It was like they were watching, the greatest show ever told. It was amazing. They loved the circus. And I'm like, nobody likes the circus anymore.
This is where Officer Pepper should have showed up.
He
should have showed. He would have been at the circus eating like a giant, couldn't you picture him with a giant bag of buttery, greasy popcorn? He's like, oh, I love the circus. But he would have said something racist.
Boy.
Yeah. Something racist about Indian people, and then maybe an elephant would have gone rogue and just speared him right in the chest. That would have
been great
with his tusk. That would have been awesome. But that would have been a perfect place for him. I don't know where the actor was at this point, if he was even still kicking, but could have been an interesting place for Pepper. By then, they probably would have promoted him to Sergeant. He would have been Sergeant Pepper. The audience would have laughed.
That would have been a fun joke, yeah.
Yeah. This would have been, yeah.
That's Sergeant Pepper now, boy.
Yeah, I wish we could rewrite this movie, Sean. I think we would do good things with it.
There's room for improvement.
Oh, this is a throwback to the beginning. I forgot to mention this note, but it is worth mentioning. Remember when the clown breaks through the window of the embassy? I have many problems with that. As you can probably imagine. We'll start with number one. How do the guards allow a clown, a man literally dressed as a clown, to get that close to the British embassy? Number two, how do the people inside of the embassy, namely M and everybody else that's in that room, Bond, I think is in there too, right? Mm-hmm. How do they know when the clown immediately breaks through the window and rolls the Fabergé egg onto the floor? How do they know it's not a bomb? M goes right over and picks it up immediately. You would think their instinct would be like duck and cover, run into a different room, at least hide under your desk or something, call security in. No, he walks right over and picks up the Fabergé egg that's in this clown's hand. I guess it was a different time. But could you imagine in a Daniel Craig movie if that happened?
But
I think he would pull out his gun and shoot the clown that was on the floor, and then clear the room. There would be like a bomb squad. Yeah, I just can't see this happening with a modern Bond.
I appreciate your eye for detail, Matt. I really do. We are now at Bond. This is Bond movie number 12 we're talking about. 13. I've kind of had to let
12, I guess. Because we didn't do Honor Majesty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At some point, I got to let... It was the exact same thing in Moonraker where I'm like, why would you leave a fully fueled space shuttle on top of a 747 that you can just turn on? Doesn't have a key or something? You left the keys in it? That doesn't make a lot of... At some point, you kind of just have to let these things go. I agree with you.
All right. I guess suspension of disbelief. But my suspension of disbelief only goes so far when you're talking about the Secret Service of a country.
whoever's
These
doing
are
security
legit
at the
spies, and
embassy should be fired.
they're responsible for security, not just of their country, but of their own embassy. And you would think that something, I don't know. Number one, yeah, I just had a lot of problems with that scene. Like, do they know that it's 009? Because they have to look it up later on.
Well, he's
They're
wearing
like,
clown makeup.
That's 009. He was on this mission. Yeah, he was like undercover, and they had to like find that out. They didn't just know automatically that it was him. And the Fabergé egg and that's enough to just be like a clue into the smuggling ring. Yeah. Didn't like it. Thought there was a way smarter way to go about that.
By the way, did you know that is in the shooting of the movie, that is a real Fabergé egg?
Really?
It is not a prop. It is the Fabergé egg is real. It was made in 1897 and called the Coronation Egg.
That's a pretty famous one, if I remember. That's like a museum item.
Mm-hmm.
Coronation egg. Wow, they used the actual coronation egg for this movie? How did they get it? How did they like come across it? Like, what? Did they buy it? Did somebody have it in their like house or something?
It was so it's been sold since, but in March of 1979, the egg was sold for $2.16 million, along with another egg. So it's like half that. So it's $1 million egg.
Wow.
This is what Wikipedia says. So, and there is no source on it. So,
all right,
take that for what's worth.
Fake news.
I did want to quickly mention the theme song of this movie. We didn't really talk about the theme songs in Moonraker, For Your Eyes Only, because they were arguably forgettable.
Well, one of them, they were forgettable, but there was I think it was the theme song to Moonraker. Yeah, it was Shirley Bass. That was her third Bond theme that
but
she had done.
It's her least favorite of the three. She was only brought in about 2 weeks before the movie was being released because they wanted either Johnny Mathis or Frank Sinatra, but they couldn't get anybody, so they brought her into the last minute.
Yes, I did hear Frank Sinatra was a contender, a possibility for this intro. He was going to do like Fly Me to the Moon or something.
Yeah.
One of his songs about being on the moon.
I mean, they would have taken anything at Sinatra.
Yeah.
And then, of course...
That would have been cool because Nancy Sinatra had done a...
that's right.
She had done a previous Bond theme with You Only Live Twice.
Yep. And, of course, For Your Eyes Only, title song by Sheena Easton, the first song artist to appear on screen in the opening credits. Blondie was originally supposed to perform that song, and they actually did release that song on their 1982 album, The Hunter.
Mm-hmm.
So, which I thought was fine. But this song is interesting with Octopussy, All Time High, Rita Coolidge. It spent 4 weeks at number 1 on the U.S. Adult Contemporary Singles Chart and reached number 36 on the Billboard Top 100s. I thought it was a pretty good song.
Yeah, it was
an all-time high.
it was the disco. I think it was a disco. No. Was it? Would you say it was disco?
Well, it was on the adult contemporary chart.
Okay.
But it was.
This is Disco Bond.
It was more of like a serious disco, is what I would call it. A thing I just made up.
Serious disco.
Yeah.
All right.
So, quickly before we move on, Matt, I do just want to touch on the bad guys' plan, which we didn't really get too much into. We have the return of General Olaf, who works with Khan to smuggle a nuclear weapon out of Russia and onto a U.S. base on the other side of the east-west German border. The idea is to set it off there so it cannot be traced to Russia having shot off a weapon, because the U.S. will know they didn't shoot a weapon. And the U.S. will think that one of theirs accidentally went off. That would cause Europe to remove nuclear weapons from Europe, which would then allow Russia and the Soviet Union to take over the Europe as well. Matt, good plan or bad plan?
Confusing plan.
Okay.
I mean, you get the missiles go to Eastern Germany, right?
Yes.
and then he's gonna set it. He's gonna set it off, but he's gonna make it look like an accident. How
Well,
would
yes,
they?
it won't be traced to Russia, and the only other nuclear weapons around there belong to the U.S.
But in the meantime, millions of people die
Correct.
because he set off a nuke in Central Europe,
Yep.
and that's gonna make the U.S. think that it was theirs.
Yes, and so the European leaders will say, U.S., take your nuclear weapons out of here. They're not safe, because apparently they were already talking about disarmament. And so they're going to pull through on it and remove the nuclear weapons, which would open the path for the Soviet Union to come in with no nuclear defenses.
So they would come into irradiated nuclear Central Europe.
Well, just that one part, but yes.
Okay. Yeah, it's a Bond villain plan. It is. It's a Bond ass villain ass plan. I think it's more original than some plans. Like, at least they're not trying to get control of all of one resource, or they're not hijacking space ships, because that seems to be a fairly common villain plan. They're not holding things for ransom. I don't know. This reminds me a lot of GoldenEye.
Okay.
What you'll see in the future Bond movie. It has to do with like empowering the Soviet Union and like making the Soviet Union a world player again. I guess you're kind of seeing like this is like post Afghan intervention Soviet Union. This is like when it's generally like they're starting to spiral out of control, and they're starting to decline. The perestroika and everything is coming in. So this makes sense. For the times it makes sense. It's like this is this crazy rogue general's last ditch effort to put the Soviet Union back on the world stage, back in center stage. So I mean, what does India have to do with this and the Fabergé eggs?
Because
how does that tie in? I forgot. It's something about smuggling the eggs. The codes are in the eggs or something.
No, it's not.
You could sell the eggs.
No, it's
to a dealer.
No, because remember they also have the case full of other non-egg jewelry, and I think that was the payment for the bomb. I don't know. I got lost. I agree with you.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Is that the plot goes in so many different directions. The villain scheme, and that's part of what makes this movie not the greatest.
Yeah. Okay.
So.
Okay. I agree. Not a great one.
Bond gets to ride an elephant, though.
He does. Yep.
Through the jungle. That part was pretty cool, I thought.
I liked when he held on to the plane, which was really unlikely, but they fought on the outside of the plane. That was exciting.
Sure.
I like the stunts.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some good stunts.
That's what I like most about these movies is the stunts. They got good stunts. Matt, I would like to say we're moving on to a better film, but we're not. I looked up Phoning It In the dictionary, and up came A View to Kill, 1985's. Roger Moore returns for his final film. John Glenn returns in the director's chair, not his last time. We'll get to more of him next week. This movie, on a budget of $30 million, made $152 million. It also had the Bond franchise's up to that point most successful theme song, A View to Kill by Duran Duran, the only theme song to reach number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 and earning a Golden Globe nomination for Best Song. We've got Christopher Walken as Mac Zorin. We've got Grace Jones as Mayday. Tanya Roberts as Stacey Sutton. Boy, Matt. I wrote in my notes, Moore is setting a record for phoning it in. And then I just wrote, I'm so confused.
All right, we'll talk about this. Yeah, this was hot and cold. I think this was a very hot and cold movie. I wrote down, first of all, talking about the music. I wrote down.
Yes, I know exactly what you're going to say.
Beach Boys in intro.
He's surfboarding to the Beach Boys.
Duran Duran in intro. And I wrote down right underneath that, Sean is totally going to love this movie.
Oh, no.
And it turns out I was wrong.
You were way wrong. No,
I was
actually,
way off the mark.
To be honest, and you want to know what... I'm actually a big Duran Duran fan. I know this song well. I had no idea it was from a Bond movie. I just really liked the song. So I'm on board with the song. Yeah. As soon as I literally wrote, when did this become Bond Extreme? And then I just wrote Beach Boys, ? As soon as the Beach Boys started, I'm like, this movie's going to suck. Like that... I was like, that's a step too far.
This is it's campy Bond. It's
but not good camp.
I don't even know. Yeah, I was gonna say
at least
not
Octopussy
even
had
camp.
Moments.
Yeah, the beach, but why? I like it's fine without it. Like you don't need to play it for yucks.
I couldn't remember any other Bond movie using a non-original song outside of the theme. Like using another song in the movie like that. They've never really done that.
No.
Which it stuck out like a sore thumb.
Yeah, it was a lot like the Tarzan scream, but it went on for longer.
It was bizarre.
Which made it more painful.
And of course, Moore is looking so old in this movie.
Yes.
You're like, he's not skiing / snowboarding.
He looks really dated, which makes it all the less believable that any of those scenes are actually happening. He looks really old in this one. Yeah, he was past his prime. Not as bad as Connery at the end of his tenure, but he's still looking a little ripe. Of course, then you also have Moneypenny, who is looking, I think, equally right. I think I wrote down Bond and Moneypenny look like an old couple in a retirement home.
Yes.
Yes. Their interactions are just, at this point, just like they've held on for too long.
Well, and it's her last movie as well.
It is, right. The saving grace for me, the only what I really liked about this movie was the villains, especially Christopher Walken, who I totally forgot was a Bond villain in this movie. I guess I never...
That says something.
I just never connected the two, but now that I see it, it's so memorable, and I think it's so perfect a role for him. I thought he did a great job. As I thought the whole time, I was like, as soon as I figured out that was Christopher Walken, I was like, I'm just going to see Christopher Walken as a Bond villain instead of just the Bond villain for who he is. But I didn't. I saw the villain. What is the villain's name in this one?
Zorin.
Zorin. Yeah, I saw Zorin. I thought he was a really good villain. I thought he thought he was like maniacal and vicious in an unfettered way that very few Bond villains have been up to this point. Like he was just a crazy murderer, basically, with zero remorse. But he had a highly sophisticated plan, which was just Goldfinger's plan. But if you realize if you noticed, it's Goldfinger's plan, but instead of gold, it's with microchips. He wants to buy up all the microchips, or he wants to get all the microchips in the world so that he can, I guess, hedge the market on microchips. I don't know. There's some good moments here where Bond is sifting through documents and like doing like detective work. Not the most thrilling or exciting moments, but it's good spy stuff. I thought. It's hot and cold. This is a hot and cold movie.
For me, it's like kind of cold. There's really very little warm in it for me, and I have to be honest. I'm gonna
like when you put something in a microwave and like only the top part is hot.
No, it's like when you put something in a microwave and then you realize your microwave isn't plugged in.
Oh, okay.
Like it's warmed up slightly, but that's just from being at room temperature. I am going to disagree with you. I don't think any of the actors were well used in this film, including Christopher Walken and Grace Jones.
That's right, Grace Jones, yeah.
Who says almost nothing the whole movie.
Yeah,
She just
she
kind
should
of
have
stands
had.
there and looks menacing.
She should have had more speaking roles, but I still thought she was a strong villain slash hero at the
But she
end.
didn't. Even Jaws had more personality than she did. And Jaws never spoke, except for the very last
I
scene.
disagree. I think she had. I think she had equal personality as Jaws. She didn't. She wasn't. She wasn't played for yucks like Jaws was in the second movie.
No,
But she was menacing. She was basically the odd job villain, but it was like a different perspective because it was a famous actress and it was a female. So
but
it was
that's what I'm
kind
saying. If you have a famous, I wanted her to be more like Knick Knack, a character who talks, who has a personality, who's integral to the plot. That's what I would have liked more out of this.
She kind of did have a personality. Like her personality was that she was a badass and she was vicious, and you knew like she could probably kill you with like her bare
but Zorn
hand,
was the same way.
which was cool. Zorn was yeah. I thought they complemented each other in a good way. They made a good pair.
When I look at Scaramanga and Knick Knack, I'm like, those are two different people who really have distinct personalities. And I'm like, okay, I get it. For these two, I just thought, and then when you get to Max Zorn, you gotta remember at this point, Christopher Walken is an Academy Award winning actor at this point in his career. And I just think he oscillates between being kind of flat and being extremely violent, which I thought was highly unusual for a Bond film. Because I realize we're getting into the mid to late 80s here, and I get that times are changing, but at the end of the film, when he floods the tunnel, the mine, and kills all those guys, and then also starts shooting them wildly with a machine gun, I was like, this is genuinely unpleasant.
Yeah, it was extremely uncomfortable and
He's
jarring.
a little too evil for a Bond villain. Like, I get that not every Bond villain is outright fun, but at least there's a fun element. Even if you talk about someone like Drax, who we were talking about earlier, he was fun because he was so grandiose. I'm a new god. Like, every Bond villain has some element. He had absolutely nothing unique or interesting other than this dude's psycho. And I thought that was a miss for me.
I liked the psycho aspect though.
I think
he was kind of almost like Joker-esque, where he just wanted to watch it burn. But he also had a plan.
He needed to be more extreme then. If you're going to be Joker, be goddamn Joker. Be extreme about it. I thought he was too mild in his performance, to be honest.
But his whole thing wasn't like manipulating chaos and like stirring chaos like some other later Bond villains are about. His thing was I've got a plan, but I'm also ruthless, and I'm not gonna be like those other guys. I'm gonna stop at nothing to accomplish my plan by murdering people like brutally, even his own people.
He would be better in a different movie. It's not a Bond villain. He's a good villain. He's not a good Bond villain. That we'll disagree on this one, but
yeah, I thought I liked anyway. I liked Christopher Walken's portrayal of him. I thought he did a good job with it.
It wasn't a bad performance. I agree with you there.
No, yeah. I even wrote on the bottom, mostly a forgettable Bond movie, except for the villains, which I did. I liked Mayday and I liked Zorin, but this was mostly a miss. Mostly because it was a lot of things that we had seen before. It was a lot of recycled, rehashed things.
But there wasn't even exciting action in this one.
No, I was just thinking of the plot. Yeah, there really wasn't. There wasn't a lot of action. It was mostly like snooping and sleuthing and espionage but not really exciting espionage. It's like Bond going through documents.
I wrote in my notes. That horse race should have been more exciting than it actually was. There's a moment where they're like trying to
throws up obstacles.
Yeah,
to try
and
to
it was like
Bond.
Boring.
It's like, why don't you just shoot him again?
I think to me, I did write in my notes. I did like the elevator scene in the city hall when it's on fire and they're trying to escape. I did think that was tense with the cable on the elevator breaking and them trying to escape the burning building. I did think that was kind of exciting. So it was intense. I give him credit for that. But I think overall, although I also wrote, pretty irresponsible of Bond to steal a fire truck from the scene of an active fire. I mean, come on. This tells you where my mind's at. But I'm like, they probably need that. The building is on fire.
Bond, put that back.
You know, steal like a cop car or something, but that's an
Put that
important
back.
one.
Yeah, or just get in a pedestrian's car and be like, "Excuse me, I need this."
No, but you take the biggest vehicle there.
The most important one.
Good job.
Yeah, but that's Bond for you. Yeah, there really isn't much I have to say about this one either. I thought that Mayday's death with the bomb,
That was great.
The mine cart. It was a good like sacrifice, but she didn't have time to jump off or run away at any point.
Well, that's.
I guess not really, because she had to wheel the whole thing out of the mine so it wouldn't collapse, and it was noble. That was a noble sacrifice, I thought. I liked that right before when they have the fight, when Bond fights Zorin on top of the Golden Gate Bridge, when like right before he lets go, like he laughs, like as one last thing, even like as if this was a joke to him. But you make a good point. Why not, if you're gonna go that route, why not play it up like the Joker? Like why not just be the craziest villain? Like why not be over the top with it? It was a little reserved. Like he has moments like manic moments of brutal craziness, but why not just be that way throughout?
Or even if you're like, I get that he has to act classy in public situations, but I didn't see like the two-faced nature. I didn't see where like in the social settings he's, I'm an industrialist, I'm a fancy guy, and then he closes the door and goes fucking berserk. Like that's and I'm like, it's Christopher Walken. He can do berserk.
And yeah, and I thought that was what their goal was. I thought that was what the writers were going for with his character, like this sociopath, where he's at a polo game or a horse race or anything, and he gives off like this air of like successful upper crust businessman, but then behind the scenes he's just a maniac, which would be interesting for the times, like the mid '80s. This is like this is like Wall Street,
American
era.
Psycho. I would have loved to have seen that.
Or American Psycho, exactly.
That
like
would have been great.
I totally agree. I think he was a little too tame, if anything.
I think of that scene where he's kind of figured out a little bit that Bond isn't who he says he is, so he brings him into his office and says, I have this computer here that'll help tell me what horse is perfect for you, the horse you're looking to buy. And he sits him down and he's typing stuff in. What kind do you want it for, speed or stamina? And he's putting it in. Like if he had done that a little more, wow, okay, like just a little more over the top, that scene was very flat.
Yeah. Can you do it like Christopher Walken?
I cannot. That's why I didn't even try.
Mr. Bond, this horse here.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's not bad.
I see that you want a horse for stamina, speed.
You could have been in this movie.
Mayday.
You're delivering about as strong of a performance.
We got to kill James Bond here. Yeah, that's all I got. But yeah, pretty forgettable Bond movie.
What did you?
This was also Roger Moore's last Bond movie. So.
Yes, and by the way, he threatened to quit before these last couple. He threatened to quit before Your Eyes Only. He threatened to quit before Octopussy, and he threatened to quit before this one because he was on a 1-year contract, a 1-film contract.
Right.
And every time they kept bringing him back.
They did. I think they at some point they entertained having. There was an American actor who was almost James Bond. Was it? I think his last name was Macklin or something.
Yeah, there were a lot of. Let me see if I can find.
There were
a lot of names thrown around.
He was on the verge of being. He was like almost the new Bond, but then Connery announced, "Never Say Never Again," and so they felt. I think it was for Octopussy. They were going to try to get this American guy to do it, but then when Connery was they felt almost threatened by that, and I guess to maintain appearances, they felt better about bringing Roger Moore back.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. For Octopussy, they seriously considered Timothy Dalton, who obviously would go on to play Bond, but it was James Brolin, the father of Josh Brolin.
That's who I'm thinking of. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that about wraps it up for me. I don't have much more to say about.
You've got nothing to say about the blimps?
It was pretty funny. There were a lot of blimps, aerial crafts. It was pretty funny when they're flying near the Golden Gate Bridge, and it's Mayday and Christopher Walken, and Zolan, what was his name?
Zoran.
Right, Zoran and Mayday, and they're flying close to the bridge, and then Mayday goes, "What a view!" And then Zoran goes, to a kill.
Like, I was like, roll credits.
I know. I was gonna say they both should have looked at the camera and like winked. It was so stupid.
It was so forced. But I kind of liked it. It was much, but silly. I kind of liked it.
Yeah.
Although I did, what was, speaking of Zoran, I was very surprised when the very first thing you see in the movie is Zoran has there's a disclaimer. Zoran has no relation to any real or fake people. Did you see that at the beginning of the film?
Yeah, what was that about?
Well, that was my first question. I'm like, so clearly there is a real Zoran, and there is a company called the Zoran Corporation, Zoran, that was founded in 1983 and makes microchips in Silicon Valley.
Was this just a coincidence?
I don't.
Those like wacky coincidences?
It says
it has to be.
Well, let me see if I can do some more research here. It says in Wikipedia anyway, when a company with the name similar was discovered in the United States, a disclaimer was added to the film. Doesn't say when.
This sounds like one of those just weird coincidences. I think Zoran is a good. It's a good name for a villain. Good villainy name. But it's just funny that they happen to be in that industry.
Yeah,
microchips.
They don't exist anymore. They've since gone out of business.
Yeah. This is another good one with another villain that's timely, like contemporary. This is around the age of the microchip, the computer microchip. So it makes sense. It's a lot like, it reminded me of Scaramanga and the solar panels for the energy crisis.
The Solex agitator.
Solex agitator, right?
Boy. Fakest sounding thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, it reminded me of that. Like it was a villain that was playing to the times, basically.
Oh, sure.
And this is partly why I thought in Octopussy the Soviet villain was kind of it seemed like he was out of touch a little bit, because while the Cold War was still going on, it was when it was ramping down, not up. And like there was détente and there was like mad was almost a thing. It was around the era when nuclear weapons were, or like nuclear deterrents were starting to be more popular. So I don't know. I thought it was a little more out of place. It was a little more not with the times.
They dipped into that Soviet Union while a little too much around this era for my money.
Yeah,
because they did in like 3 or 4 back-to-back films where the Russians were at some point involved, which I thought got a little tiring, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that's more of a vestige of the Connery Bond, and you could say maybe they could have gone the route in the early Moors, but they didn't. That was where they got more exotic and more campish. But
they got into voodoo.
Yeah, that's right, voodoo and kung fu.
Well, I was thinking about that today. I'm like, James Bond in this series of films, in the Roger Moore films, has both gone to outer space and discovered magic exists. Like, where can these movies... Is he going to, like, travel through time? Like, where are these movies going to go?
Well, like, they don't go anywhere, because this was his last one.
It's true. It's his last one, Matt. Tragic. It sounds like we're about done with this one. Any broader thoughts on Roger Moore before we leave him in our rearview mirror?
I mentioned earlier in the podcast just that seeing these movies over again gave me a new appreciation for Moore as a James Bond actor. To me, he was pretty low on my scale in terms of Bond actors, just because of the campiness and the over-the-top jokes and things like that. But watching these again, it made me appreciate him more. And his 2 strongest features for me were Spy Who Loved Me and A View to a Kill, which were... Oh, no, I'm sorry. Spy Who Loved Me and For Your Eyes Only. Which were similar. I think they had many notes in common, and these were the return to form movies. I don't know why that is. maybe I just enjoy the more spy aspects of the Bond films rather than the exotic Bond. Although I do still like Live and Let Die and where that movie goes, but for different reasons.
Sure.
But for me, the strongest films were the return to form, the ones that were more in line with the early Connery movies.
But
right?
you like the more spy focused Connery films too.
Exactly.
You know,
right. I was just going to say that. Yeah, Diamonds Are Forever to me was the weakest Connery. Also, You Only Live Twice wasn't a particularly strong film either. I much prefer the Doctor No, the Rush of Love, Thunderball, spy movies. But I guess that's my own interpretation of Bond, and it goes to show the diversity that a viewer can, like, the diverse experience a viewer can have when watching these films. So, I really, really can't say enough how much I enjoyed For Your Eyes Only, and the subverting expectations and the things that they do in that movie. I love it. I loved it a lot more this time than I think I did originally, and that's another good thing, is coming back and watching these old films and getting new things out of them. What do you think, Sean? What was your takeaway from the Moore films?
I agree. I know I liked Moonraker more than you did. For me, The Spy Who Loved Me, Moonraker, For Your Eyes Only is an amazing triple header. I think to have those three back to back for me, and the fact that you can do both a serious kind of spy focused film and a goofy go to space film, and I can enjoy both of them with the same actor, is pretty incredible. I think more, I obviously haven't seen all the Bonds. I'm not going to start ranking them because I don't think that's fair, but I think Roger Moore specifically is so I came into this, it's the same way I came into not having seen Star Wars, where I've heard people talk about these movies a lot. I've heard a lot of opinions about these movies. And Roger Moore always got a lot of crap, at least from the people I heard from. And I don't really think that's fair. I think Roger Moore, he's just like Connery, has good movies and bad movies. But I think his good movies are really good. And I think he goes on for a stretch where he can really, really run the role well. So of these 7 movies, maybe A View to the Kill is the only one I'll genuinely say I really didn't like. Even Octopussy, there were moments I really liked. Man with the Golden Gun, there were moments. Live and Let Die was at least interesting. But the vast majority of these I really did enjoy, and I think that was great. And I will double down on what you said. I was thinking about this. You get, Matt, a lifetime supply of props for picking James Bond as a topic, because it's so exciting and fascinating to me that we have 50 years of James Bond films to go through with different directors, different actors, different writers. The only thing that stays is the name James Bond. And to me, that's really exciting because you get to see these change over the years. And I wrote in some of my notes, I think it was on maybe The Spy Who Loved Me. I'm not sure. I wrote, this movie is so 70s. And then by the time you get to A View to a Kill, you're like, this movie's so 80s, right? And I'm like, that's cool. And you can see the change over time and in the styles of movies and what they present. And to me, it's really, really fascinating. And we're halfway through. I've really been enjoying this series so far. I'm very excited for the rest of our episodes. So great so far. Roger Moore, glad we did it. I thought he was very interesting.
A Bond for every season, as they say.
I mean, there are a lot, again, Matt, there are a lot of these damn movies.
There are.
It's
and they do span a long time.
50 years.
50 years of Bond. It's like every decade kind of has their iconic Bond. Everybody has their favorite Bond.
50. No, it's way over 50.
Well, the first one was
62, so that would be in 2022. So in 3 years, it'll be 60 years.
Right. Wow. Okay, so 60 years of Bond.
I was getting confused because Bond 25, the next movie, is the 25th movie.
Okay. I'm thinking, is this past decade, the 2010s, is that, will that be the first decade since Bond came out that we can say, like, there was no Bond of that decade?
There were 2 Bonds in that decade.
Well, when I think of Daniel Craig, to me, he's the 2000s Bond, not the 2010s Bond.
It's hard.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, but
Like-
Die Another Day was 2002, and The World Is Not Enough was even 99. So Pierce Brosnan did go into
Late
the
90s.
decade. He did go to 2002, and then it wasn't. Then we went 4
Well,
years.
to me, I guess the boxes I put them in is like Connery was the 60s Bond. Moore was the 70s Bond. Dalton, and I know these dates aren't 100%
Sure.
spot on because there's definitely some overlap. But Dalton was the 80s Bond, Brosnan the 90s Bond, and Craig, that would make Craig the 2000s Bond. But then what about the 2010 Bond? You know what I'm saying? Like,
No, I'm with you, but technically, I mean,
I guess it's because of the overlap. There is significant overlap. So we're basically, what I'm saying is we're due for a new Bond.
Oh, we definitely are. And these days, I mean, Brosnan went for 4, Craig went for 4. I don't think you'll see another guy go for 7 movies. Give Roger Moore credit.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's hard to do. But Roger Moore spanned 2 decades. I mean, he started in 71, ended in 85. He went 15 years. And it was only Timothy Dalton that rounded out the 80s. So
that,
I agree with you.
That's probably where it skews a little bit then, because then that would make Dalton like the early 90s Bond. Would be
because
Timothy Dalton.
from 89 was Licensed to Kill. Then we didn't get Goldeneye till 95. So there really was no
Right.
early
So it's kind
90s.
of pushing, it kind of pushes Brosnan almost into the 2000s range. But
I would call Daniel Craig the Bond of the new millennium, is probably, at least so far.
mm-hmm.
But Matt, I'm very excited for next week because we're going to have the Forgotten Bonds are going to get their own episode. We're going to backtrack a little bit, go all the way back in the time machine to 1969. Finally talk. I'm considering I know nothing about it, but all we've talked about it, I'm very excited for On Her Majesty's Secret Service with George Lazenby. Because I think we're going to have some stuff to talk about there. And then we're also going to bring in Timothy Dalton, The Living Daylights, and License to Kill. We're going to include those 3 movies before we hit Pierce Brosnan.
Sean, do we want to touch on Never Say Never Again?
Have you seen it?
I have.
Is it worth seeing?
Yes, but
Okay.
I won't tell you why. I'll
Okay.
just say that it is. Yeah.
If you want me to watch it, I will watch it.
Let's talk about it. Yeah, let's
It's a deal.
let's feature it. I
It's a
think
deal.
that would be cool. Okay, so
Great.
maybe those
So now
4?
this is a 25 movie miniseries. Thanks,
Yeah.
Matt. Give me more homework.
It rounds out. It'll all be worth it.
Okay.
You know, by the time we finish this, maybe they'll come out with another one and it'll make it a 26.
At the rate we're going, Matt, it would not surprise me.
Yeah.
Not at all. All right, Matt, that's going to do it for this one.
Right.
Our longest episode ever. But a good one. I hope everyone out there enjoyed as much as we did. The Bond Marathon continues next week. Join us as we talk about 4 movies, The Forgotten Bonds. It'll be a fun one, and if you haven't seen the previous series, go to our website, upfordebate.tv, and get caught up on all the episodes here we had to say about Sean Connery and the previous Roger Moore. We've done a lot of these. Colby's been on. It's been great. You can also listen to other episodes there as well. And listen to our XFL mini-series. We've had a lot of developments with the AAF, some stuff about the XFLs coming out. We're going to have to do a follow-up one of these days, Matt, on that.
Yeah.
A lot of news.
There's been a ton of news. We've been doing this Bond stuff, but the world keeps turning.
Yeah, we
the
got to
world
get back
of the
to
XFL keeps turning.
we got to get back to our roots, B-level football leagues.
That's right.
Our real bread and butter.
Where we belong. Yeah.
Yes. But that's going to do it for this episode. We appreciate everyone out there for joining us, but we're going to end it here. On behalf of Matt, I'm Sean. We'll see you next time for more Bond action on another Up for Debate Presents.